Standards is a key thematic pillar of Green Digital Action, and Green Digital Action is not just the name of today's summit, it's an ongoing initiative that was launched 2 years ago with, in the meanwhile, over 50 partners, but actually, if we count all the organizations that are involved, there's many, many more. And it's focusing really on 7 different thematic pillars, from the positive effects of ICTs on climate change and environmental sustainability, to measuring greenhouse gas emissions, such as we heard before, to open data, to circular economy, emergency telecommunication. We've launched a new pillar on green computing, which is currently working a lot on sustainable AI, which is also very interesting, and a report will be launched at the AI for Good Summit in July, and standards. So it's really fantastic that now the next panel will focus on the importance of standards in this topic, and will address why standards are crucial for ensuring technology is a force for environmental good. So I'd like to introduce the speakers, Mr. Christoph Winterhalter, who's the chairman of the executive board of DIN, the German standardization organization. Then we have Anne-Marie Tumescheit, technology consultant, government relation and public affairs of Fujitsu Technologies. Paolo Gemma, who is the chair of WP25 in ITUT. And as the moderator, Saifur Rahman, who's the 2023 president of the IEEE. Thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Happy to be here. It's going to be the crucial part of today's events, standards and technology. So I'll start with first question. Standards are crucial for ensuring impact on the environment from AI. We have 3 different individuals, different perspectives. I'll start with Christoph first. From a SDO perspective, why do you think standards are important to measure impact of AI usage?
We basically heard it this morning, so that we are lacking metrics to measure efficiency of AI. And I mean, you talk about company standards versus kind of all-inclusive standardization organizations that are really trying to involve all the stakeholder groups. But standardization is a mindset. So it's an understanding that we need a common metrics, a common language, whether it starts within a company, but that they talk about the same thing, whether within a sector that competitors can actually compare their results, or civil society coming into the picture saying, we want to have transparency and have a better understanding how things work. And that's where we as standardization bodies come into the picture.
Anne-Marie, from your perspective, same issue.
Yeah, from my perspective, without standards, it's not possible to do a good work, even in the ICT sector. We are not able to do anything without it. If you allow me a comparison, in the 60s, we got containers in the logistics, and they were standardized at the beginning of the 60s, and after that, we got all these big container ships and things like that, and logistics around the world, and we have the same in IT, and without good standardization, even for AI or whatever, it won't be able to do anything else.
Thank you very much. Pablo, different perspective, the chair of a working party. So from that big picture, where do you think it is coming from?
Without any metrics on efficiency, so on, is like impossible to move on climate change combat, because definitely anyone can say something. As I said, a lot of time, if you want to reduce the power consumption, the more easily is switch off all, but it's not what we need to do. With a matrix is always a comparison between what is the work that the equipment, the service do, and which is consumption. This is valid for AI, it's valid for a communication phone, and so on. And it's very important to establish a robust metric agreed by all the stakeholders involved, not only by someone, because we need to compare what is happening from different companies, from different operators, from different sectors. Especially in AI, this morning we heard a lot of time about the contribution of AI to other sectors, and so on. And it's something that we need to measure, which should be the contribution of AI, but we need, and this is the more difficult, to establish which is the consumption, which is the impact really of AI. And this is I think, the future topic, the future challenge of the next years.
I hear two things here, standards and innovation. My question is, if you have too many standards, does it stifle innovation, slow down innovation? If that's the case, how do you solve this? I'll start with you, Paolo.
I think that they need to go in parallel. In the past, from when I started yesterday to work on standard, we write standard to look on the efficiency of the power consumption, something that exists. And we said a lot of time that, okay, we can just make a check of what is happening, but we are not able to drive. What is important now is to drive, not to drive innovation, to stop the innovation, but to try to, when people is working on innovation, also to tell them, please look also on which is the consequence of that. I remind that a lot of years ago, I was in a conference in Sofia Antipolis in TSI about SDN. And I see a lot of people, they speak about good routing, improving routing to have more data, so on. And I ask at a certain point, you consider which is the efficiency of your data or your routing from energy point of view? He said, and always I said, oh, it's something that we can implement in the future. This is not the true way to work. I think on this standardization need to be in parallel innovation.
Anne-Marie?
I think it really depends on the maturity level of the technology. So if you, for example, have a look at quantum computing, then that is a technology where we really don't know in which direction the platforms are heading. And so it's really difficult to set up standards, because if we do so, then we will maybe kill the innovation. But on the other hand, if you have a technology like digital twin, which you can apply to nearly every sector, then you need standards, because otherwise there is no possibility for any small company, startup, or even for the society to come up with new use cases and to innovate, new use cases.
Thank you. Please,
I
Christoph.
really want to challenge that, especially the example of quantum technology. Because what you need in an early phase of an invention, you need to talk about terminology, that everybody's talking about the same thing. In the case of quantum computing, we need to have clear standards how to measure performance of quantum computers. Because then you can compare different quantum computers, you can compare quantum computers to traditional computers, but you cannot describe the technology as such, like as a best practice. That comes into the picture later. So you need different types of standards in the early phase of an invention, but in order to have it to scale, you need to have comparability with other technologies, and that's where standards play a very important role.
But to be honest, that's even difficult for quantum computing.
Yes.
If I can add just a little point, a lot of people think the standard is something that cannot change. This is completely untrue. We can modify standard, improve the standard a lot of time. It's not something that today, if white that is red, need to be red for 10 years. No, this is not true. Standard evolve a lot.
Thank you. Let me change gears now briefly. I work with many policymakers, issue of metrics, that they always ask me, what is a metric? What is a metric? How do you do this? Issue here is, you heard this morning, globally, AI sector, 2% electricity being used globally. US, 4%. Those numbers don't mean anything to me. What happens on the ground, that matters. I come from Virginia. Virginia has the world's highest AI center concentration, highest in the world. In Virginia, 20% electricity from AI center, 20%, not 4%. US 4%, Virginia 20%, big difference. Question is, where's the energy coming from? Well, not enough land to put solar, not enough land there, not possible. You cannot put diesel engines, gas turbines, public wouldn't accept it. Nuclear, not acceptable. Only option is bring power from somewhere else. Build transmission lines. Public is opposed to it. This is the challenge. Virginia has enough signed contract now to build data centers. They have to wait 5 years. So much demand, 5 years. Then the state government said, we must need a metric to decide who comes first, who can jump the line, literally. And that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Case in point in Singapore. Singapore government has postponed any new data centers. Nothing new. Not enough water, not enough power, not enough transportability. So this is a challenge. It's not 2030, today happening. We talked about this morning, 2030 problem. It's today's problem. So my question is, what can people like you do to build metrics and give it to my state senator? This is a way you judge the acceptability of a new proposal for a data center in your neighborhood. I'm going to ask with you, Christoph.
I mean, what we can offer as a standardization community is use the multi-stakeholder approach. Invite kind of the regulator to kind of bring the case to the table. This is the challenge that we're having. This is the data that we need in order to make data-driven decision. The question is, who do we need around the table to have an educated kind of discussion and come up to a conclusion? What are the data points that we actually need to make this educated decision? And what's going to be the data model in which we are going to feed the data that we are collecting from all the different players to make these decisions? So it's really important that there is a public-private dialogue. What do we want to achieve, and what kind of information can we get? And we heard it in an earlier panel. It needs to be practical. If we try to talk about all the theoretical information we need on the table to make an optimal decision, it's not going to work. So you need to talk to the companies, you need to talk to involved players of the private sector to see what's realistic. What kind of information can you collect in an easy way in order to make these educated decisions? So it's really multi-stakeholder process, bring everybody around the table and see what is the practical best possible way to get the necessary data.
And Murray, you are government relations, public affairs person, government relations. This is the issue. So how you deal with it?
Yeah, I'm really surprised in many dialogues I have how many people don't think about multi-stakeholder processes and discussions, and that they are really surprised when I tell them, yeah, of course you can go to the government, you can go to a standardization committee and work with them. And they're always telling me, what? I never heard about it. So I think it's really, we have to really to do to educate the people what's possible, and we really have to look that we, for example, work together on data formats so that there was a good exchange of this. But what I think is also important is that we have a look how much data do we need, so that we not only look on the technical side of formats, but also on the economic or on the social side that's coming on with this, so that we set up things in a sustainable way, and that the technology won't be a part of the problem, but part of the solution. And for this, then that's, for example, like energy efficient data centers or things like that, really drive or really move us forward so that we can build good solutions which are good for the environment.
You touched a very sensitive point you touched right now that for me important. Do we need AI for everything? I don't think we don't. Tell you why. If you ask a question in Google now, distance between Geneva and Berlin, it'll come back in 0.005 seconds. How much energy was used? We measured that. 30 milliwatts. Google, question. Ask ChatGPT, same question. ChatGPT, same question. You have done that. When you Google, answer comes up. ChatGPT, step by step answer comes in. It takes time. So ChatGPT will need 300 milliwatt hour, as about 30. Same question. So how do we train our young people? Do not go to ChatGPT for everything. Like what should I wear for my date? Don't ask Google that question. So that is very important. We have to educate the public that don't put everything in the same box. Then you're hurting the whole world. Very important issue. And standard can play a role going forward. My point is, as an educator myself, as a professor, that's my role. Tell people, do the right thing. Paolo?
This is a question that I need to make to my wife, that is a teacher in Italian school. Because I think that is very important what you said, because we need to think that we need to think, not to ask ChatGPT or AI to think on our behalf. It's different. This is very important. I see the AI as a tool, as a machine that can help us, not substitute us. This is very important to teach, to said to the people, especially to young people. If differently, I don't know, the idea that we use AI for all, as I said before, we need, and we said in ITUT what we are starting, we need to see if there's a AI application, which is the benefit that we give, but also which is the malefit. If I need to build a big data center of 10 megawatt, just to decide which type of ice cream I need to eat, I don't see the benefit for the planet. This is extremist. But this is the reality at the end.
You want to add something, please?
I think we can also expand the question. Do I need every email? Do I need every video call, or is maybe a normal call also feasible? I think this is a problem or a question that standardization can just answer partly. Another part is that we have to educate the people that they realize that their digital activities will also have a carbon footprint, and not only if they have garbage at home, for example. And this is really a social and educational task.
I think that what the guy from RCEP said in the before roundtable is to advise people on which is the impact of what they made. This is very important. And it's very important that all the government made that.
Please.
I think it's all about responsible consumption. And that starts with education, that starts with transparency, and that's also another element where standards can help. To kind of show the efficiency, to show the impact in a standardized way. That we are not ending up with thousands of labels with confusing information, and you cannot compare these kind of informations to make a kind of educated decision.
So my question is, you're a standard-making person. When you discuss standard-making process in committees, do you look at impact on the environment of this thing, whatever that is, going forward, or that is not a consideration for you, typically?
I mean, the most obvious thing to have a more efficient standards development process is to avoid physical travel of people. So, I mean, really embracing the possibility to have a discussion in this multi-stakeholder community without everybody traveling across the world, especially when I look at my role in ISO, the International Standards Organization. Bringing 170 countries together, it's kind of an awful carbon footprint if we don't manage to do it properly using kind of video technology. And that is what we have learned, of course. That's just one dimension of making standards development more energy efficient.
Add something?
What we, for example, do is that we have an assessment for new IT projects where we have a look if we really can save more carbon gases or carbon emissions than we will make with our IT solution. So for Fujitsu, even long before we had the supply chain regulation, we monitor very good where all our resources came from and how much or how big will the carbon footprint of our IT products. And then we can put this information together and have a look, okay, maybe we have a traffic optimization, how much carbon will we save when we optimize the traffic in this city or in this area, and then have a look how much it costs. And this is also something which is just possible because of standardization, because we have standard data formats which we can use, APIs, and so on, and with this we can do so.
Pablo, okay.
As at you, just to say that what he said we wrote a standard on to assess, which is the result of a virtual meeting respect to a physical meeting from environmental point of view. Then from the result of standardization, I have some little issue about because I see that sometimes face-to-face meetings are more useful. Sometimes, so we need to think on a hybrid case, on a balance about that. Sure, the idea to have a protocol, so sometimes I become German, standardized methodology to report data, to measure the data is very important. This is very important.
But I think it's very important that we, first of all, look at the carbon footprint of the standardization community, the technical working group, what they spend in terms of traveling hours, what kind of equipment they use. But that's one thing. What's even